you've got to love Big Finish. I mean, Tom Baker hasn't been the Doctor for like 40 odd years now. Yet somehow he's able to do a story with the Doctor from, well, like over 10 years ago now. Mental. So welcome to my latest Big Finish review. This time, as you can tell from the title and the thumbnail, we are going to be talking about Out of Time, starring both David Tennant and Tom Baker as the 10th and the 4th Doctors. I've got to admit, going into this story, I was a little bit apprehensive because sometimes the classic era and the new series, they are both great, but I'm not sure how much they can cross over without betraying themselves a little bit, if that makes sense. Like, there's certain things in the classic series that the new series would never do, and vice versa. So to mash them together for Big Finish on audio, how is it going to work? Overall, I've got to say, I really enjoy this story. I think it's safe to say, as someone who is a massive fan of the 4th Doctor, hearing him interact with another Doctor is always just awesome. So the basic plot of Out of Time is there's this big cathedral thingy in space where you can look at other points in time and space. The 10th Doctor is in this cathedral and he's fiddling around, and then he breaks the rules and he enters another room where he shouldn't go, and he finds the 4th Doctor. And then there's a little bit of like, I can't let you know who I am, all that bollocks. And then the Daleks invade and the story goes from there. The Doctors have to save this cathedral from a Dalek attack. First and foremost, what I've got to say, the chemistry between both Tom and David Tennant, fantastic. What makes it even more impressive is I know for a fact that this was recorded during lockdown, so I don't know how it went, as in, did Tom just record his lines at one point and then send them in, and then David record his lines and send them in, or were they on a Zoom, Skype, chat, whatever, with each other and they could hear each other talking? I don't know. If it's the case where they did record it totally separately and they weren't even interacting with each other over a Zoom call or Skype call or phone call or smoke signals, then that's incredibly impressive, because they genuinely sound like they are bouncing off one another. They sound like they would if they were recording this audio next to each other. I mean, I know that they know each other, but I didn't think that they had this good a chemistry. Like, they genuinely work so well. I would not have said on paper that the 4th and 10th Doctors would have worked that well, because they are quite similar characters somewhat in certain aspects. And I think what works best with the Doctors is when they clash. So for example, the prime example is Pertwee and Troughton. Those two are so different that it just works because they're opposites and opposites attract. Whereas with Tom and David, there are a few similarities, but you never really get annoyed by either of them with their quirks and whatnot. Or at least I didn't. One thing I will say though, as a slight negative, this is very much a new series style story, which would obviously make sense because it's a 10th Doctor story, therefore it will be his story, because usually the later incarnation of the Doctor will take the lead in that story because another Doctor's returning, even though the 10th Doctor's technically returning. It's the way that I explain things in such crisp and clear detail. That's why you're really hearing it. Basically what I'm trying to say is usually the later Doctor, it's their story, so therefore it will feel like their story. So for example, the 2 Doctors isn't going to feel like a 60s Patrick Troughton story because it's Colin's story in the 1980s. And so with that, yes, you are going to expect it to be like a story from, well, it's set during the lonesome period for the 10th Doctor, so you are going to expect it to feel like that sort of era, and it definitely does. But the problem with it that I had was that every now and again Tom's Doctor doesn't sound like Tom's Doctor. Tom's Doctor sounds like a modern Doctor. He's saying lines of dialogue that the 4th Doctor in the classic era never would have said, whereas the 10th or 11th Doctors, they probably would have said in their own eras. It's not a common thing, it's not something that happens pretty much all the time. It's not like the characterization of the 4th Doctor is gone, but in places there are certain moments and lines of dialogue where I'm like, that doesn't sound like something that the 4th Doctor would say. Plus, whilst we're on the new series style story thing, one thing that you guys, if you watch my channel, will know, I don't really like the End of Time. I don't like that over self-indulgent bollocks that the 10th Doctor does, where he's like, woe is me, I'm dead, like, and someone else wanders off. I don't care about that shit. And if you are someone who also don't care about that shit, then you're probably not gonna like certain aspects of this story, as I didn't. Like I say, I don't like the 10th Doctor who is mopey and whiny and annoying and like, oh, I'm gonna die soon. It's just so bad that, you know, I'm this being that can regenerate endlessly now, apparently, and I can just, you know, it's just like I'm dying. I just hate that attitude from the 10th Doctor, and it does rear its head in this story, which, if you like it, it's not gonna bother you. It's gonna seem perfectly fine, but for me, it annoys me. I can't get annoyed at Big Finish though, because Big Finish are doing the right thing. They are following the canon of the TV show. So I can't get mad that they've done that. It's just, it annoys me that the TV show did it in the first place so that Big Finish will then do it years later. Why didn't they think ahead? Do you know what I mean? Russell, why didn't you think ahead that Big Finish were going to be using this stuff and it annoys me so I can rant about it on my YouTube channel? You didn't think of me, did you? I mean, forget the fact that you've never met me and you don't know me, Russell T Davis, but you didn't think of me. But apart from that, let's talk about a few more positives, because I did start off positive and then I went negative. So, pacing, fantastic. This story goes incredibly well, actually. It doesn't feel like there's any filler, any moments where, oh, you know, I would have taken that out or anything. I don't wish that moments were shorter or longer. Everything feels like it is the perfect length. From A to B, to start to end, everything that needs to be there is there, and it's done incredibly well. I mean, I know that Out of Time is going to be a multi-part series, so I think the next one's with Davison, then after that is Colin. Probably they'll do one with McCoy and McGann and Eccleston as well. Oh, Eccleston and Tennant's story. Fucking get on it. Anyway, I imagine the whole, I can't let that incarnation of me from the past know who I am yet. Oh look, they figured it out. That will probably get tedious if they keep doing it. Although with Davison, I guess you can get away with it because of Time Crash. Either way, I liked it in this story and I thought it worked very well, and it added to the pacing and it added a few humorous moments, but I can imagine it would get old pretty quickly. So that's just kind of a warning for the rest of the series. I know it's not really relevant to now, but I just thought I'd get that out there, because whilst I enjoyed those moments whilst they were happening, I kind of would get the impression that they would annoy me further on. But no, even the characters that are side characters, they feel developed. One thing I will say is, in terms of the type of characters that they are kind of generic, but they're done really, really well. So even though they don't feel like original characters, you know, you've got a lot of military types in this, for example. So you've got the staunch military dad who's like, war is great and blah, 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 blah. And you've got the kid who's a bit nervous and a bit of a coward and doesn't really want to fight and wants to do their own thing and wants to get out of the father's shadow. You've seen some of these tropes all before. They're in this. It's fine, like I say, they're perfectly well executed. It's just the problem is that they are generic characters. The main girl though, her name's not very memorable apparently. That's her name now. I want to say Joffre. No, that's the cricketer. I'm not sure. But either way, I like her the most out of all the side characters. The depiction of the cathedral, it sounds incredible as well. It sounds like a really interesting place that the Doctor Who universe would go. And I really want to see it again. I don't know if I necessarily want to see it with either of these Doctors again, because they've been there, but I'd love to see the cathedral take on a life of its own. Maybe the cathedral is an even bigger part of the story. Like, it was such an interesting idea, but in the end it became somewhere that the Daleks invaded, whereas the actual idea behind it is a really solid one. This cathedral that just looks out across the universe in different time and space periods, I think would be really, really interesting in of itself. And I did mention them there. The Daleks are of course in this story because it's the Daleks. They're always in Doctor Who stories lately, it seems. They're just Daleks. They're handled really well. Nick Briggs, he does a fantastic job voicing them, as we already know. The unique thing about this story with the Daleks though is that it's old and new. And I say it's unique even though Moffat tried it multiple times and it never fucking worked. However, this time it does work. You've got one Dalek who is the Supreme Dalek, who is the same one that we saw in the Stolen Earth Journey's End, the red and gold one. And then all the other grunt Daleks are sort of like the gunmetal grey from the classic era. And what I like is that Nick Briggs has clearly done his homework. Not that I think he needed to, because he's an expert on Daleks and Dalek voices, but I like the fact that he does try and mimic the classic series style sound. Not only that, they use the old sound effects as well, which is fucking awesome. I'm down for some old school special effects, mate, even if it is on audio. Another thing that I thought was awesome as well, and I've probably missed some of the references as well. I'll need to listen to it again so I can get them all, but I'm sure there's many a reference to some random ass stories in this. I mean, I picked up references to stuff like Frontier in Space and Resurrection of the Daleks. Two stories that I was not expecting to hear references to. Possibly Asylum of the Daleks as well. That's awesome. I love the fact that, you know, Big Finish does this all the time. And I think the most die-hard Doctor Who fans are the ones who do listen to Big Finish. I don't think there's casual Doctor Who fans that will go and check out audio. So the fact that Big Finish is aware of that and they put those in there, and you get, you know, weird little ginger nerds like me in front of a camera saying, oh my god, did you pick up that reference to Frontier in Space and Resurrection of the Daleks? I think that's awesome. That sort of fan service I've got time for. I really do. I think overall this story has a hell of a lot to offer. I think you've got a great rapport between the two Doctors. I think you've got a really fast-paced and well-written story with generic but interesting enough supporting characters. You've got a really great location for the story. Everything about this story I enjoy. The only problem is, and I can't quite put my finger on it, it's not one that I would rush out and listen to again. It's not one that I think is a stellar story. I think it's a very good story, and that's as far as it goes. Some of the moments here and there I think are out of character for the 4th Doctor, because he's clearly talking like the 10th Doctor, but apart from that, I don't have too many faults with this story. I think there's some really awesome moments, and I think there's some really clever ideas in here, and I think the performances are fantastic. And overall, I'm going to give Out of Time an 8 out of 10. In the comments below though, guys, let me know what you think of Out of Time. Is it a story that you enjoyed? Do you agree with what I was saying, that it's not perfect? Whatever it is, or if you even hated it, whatever it is, let me know. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on it, subscribe for more. Social media and Patreon links will be in the description as always, so if you'd follow me on any of those things, I would absolutely love you forever. But until next time guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye. I'll need to listen to it again for fucking hell.